positions with respect to this topic now. Let's still remain in Lagos and talk to Aloga Ignatius Obodo, who is Executive Secretary, Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners. Now, the issue of traffic gridlock along Apapa has become so perennial that it has even metamorphosed into a conundrum of sort. And with the question put to the Permanent Secretary by Kingsley, it does seem that your men are particularly involved in this because it concerns huge trucks carrying inflammable substances. What's your take on why this has remained the way it is today?
Morning, Nigerians, once again. It has remained the way it is because some basic laws and procedures have not been followed. Like I kept saying that, look, for these tank farms to operate, they need truck holding bay. The other time, you remember I said we have close to 63 tank farms in Apapa. And of these 63 tank farms, not more than half of them have holding bays. And each of these tank farms has a capacity to load between 100 and 150 trucks a day. So if 50% of them are loading petroleum product, you will expect if you multiply the number of trucks by the number of tank farms, you will imagine the number of trucks we have on our way. Then secondly, the shipping companies have become laws unto themselves. They are supposed to have truck holding bays. These containers are not meant to get into the port directly. They are meant to be stacked in an area. And then after stacking them in an area, you move them at night to the ports. Then going beyond that again, the roads are bad. You see, it is not the interest of any trucker to remain on the road because his income is a function of his turnaround. We quite sympathize with the terrible experiences the drivers are going through. Then again, some of these terminal operators do not have sufficient cargo handling equipment. For a number of containers, you need specific number of cargo handling equipment. These things are there, and they are compounding the problems. You see, tank farms sometimes have caused some enormous problems because if a tank farm, for example, has a capacity to load maybe 300 trucks, and it goes ahead and collect money for maybe 500 trucks, and then if the 300 trucks load, the 200 trucks, where do you expect them to go? It still boils down on the issue of regulation. Again, there's a DPR law that says any tank farm, before you license a tank farm, it must have a truck holding bay. How many of these tank farms have truck holding bay, and how were they licensed? And as I speak to you, some other tank farms are coming up in Ijegu. So government must be proactive. Lagos State must be proactive to see how they can address the issue of these tank farms coming up. So there are lots of problems in the industry. And most of the containers that were moved from the road were taken to empty bonded terminal. And those empty bonded terminals were used as container holding bays. So, and it boils down to the issue, to the point we've been raising, that shipping companies need holding bays so that they can stack containers and move these containers at night. And sometimes there are also problems. These containers are getting into the port. All of a sudden, you hear system shut down. Their system have shut down. And what does that mean? That means you cannot go access the port and no trucks can come out. Invariably, these trucks that are being tied down with containers will also lead to congestion in the port. Because these same trucks that are these same trucks that are tied down that will also move containers from the port. So it all boils down on issue of regulation. There is need for proper regulation. There is need for critical synergy among the stakeholders.
Mr. Aloga Obogo, thank you very much. Again, we'll return to you, but still with the three guests in Lagos. This time, we want to bring in Tony Nwabonike, National President, Association of Licensed Customs Clearing Agents. Give us a sense of what the experience of your members has been over the years, particularly since the traffic gridlock became a nightmare in and around the Papa area?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. My name is Tony Juma Bunike. Once more, I just want to be very sincere in this case. Nigerians are experiencing the worst position in trafficking in Lagos, most importantly, very close to Nigerian ports authorities. But I must thank the federal government of Nigeria through the Vice President of Nigeria, Osibanjo, who has been intervening severally in our problems in the ports. First of all, he actually mentioned ease of doing business. He came back again to look at this critical situation of how to get access to Nigerian ports. The problem we are having has been enormous, not just today. It has been a long-time thing. We need to have a long-time solution to these problems. My members are actually suffering. We are in the hands of the truck owners, truck drivers, and even the terminal operators and the shipping companies. The shipping companies have taken the laws into their hands. They don't have holding bay. They don't have anywhere to offload their empty containers. They don't even want to be in line with what government wants according to the import guidelines and procedures in the ports. The problem we're having is that nobody respects the government policies in the ports. From all the government agencies to the transport organizations. Last time, precisely 7th June this year, we called them to a meeting in our secretariat, the NATOs and other truck owners. We wanted to know exactly how to get this problem sorted out. And the issue came to us, and we discussed extensively very well. We told them that they need to have an empty container holding bay. They now told us they don't have it. So what we did was to call all our members who are having bonded terminals, who have some little areas to stack the empty containers. And we had an agreement with these bonded terminals. They agreed with us. We sent the letter to the Nigerian Ports Authority. The MDD was very magnanimous to tell them that they should use this holding bay. The problem we're having is that most of the truck drivers refuse to understand that these roads are purely roads for everybody. They use all these roads according to what they want to do with it. Even when the task force was formed, then calling up the containers from the holding bays or wherever they are to go and discharge the port is another problem. They always complain, the truck drivers are always complaining that the task forces are asking them for bribes, asking them for money before they go into the terminals. So most times, if they want to offload the containers, they will pay from 50 to 70,000 to offload it. Otherwise, you'll be on that line till the kingdom come. And another thing is very clear, that even the transporters are very many associations. So they don't want to speak with one voice. They refuse to understand that federal government has given orders, and I want enforcement in this order. The most important thing is one thing is clear. Law can be made, but enforcement must be implemented to the letter, not just the transportation. The roads are extremely bad, yes. The road has been bad all the time through, but the most important thing is the discipline amongst us. We don't have it. Most people that are working in the ports believe that it's all commerce affairs. It's all business as usual. No principles of order. Nothing to be respected about. And I want federal government to put a serious enforcement on this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Kingsley, he has raised very, very pertinent issues concerning this, and that makes the entire thing even more complex than I've even believed in the past, considering the indisciplined aspect of it, the unpreparedness, the unplanned nature of the entire area. Now, talking about laws and regulations and enforcing them, let's return to Abuja and speak to our friend here, Ochuboju, who is a legal practitioner. Now, how do you piece this together? How do you juxtapose this with respect to what the law says or what regulations should be?
Kyrian, the gentlemen in Lagos, particularly Aloga and Tony, they address the microeconomic management of road infrastructure in Lagos very well. Issues of regulation, they mentioned it, and issues of laws, they mentioned it. We have mentioned this issue even in our previous conversation on this topic. It simply comes down to enforcement to a large extent. But then, why it has become so chaotic in Lagos particularly, it's not just about enforcement now because it's so overwhelming. It's now a national catastrophe in Lagos. Not just for those in Lagos, but also for us who depend on Lagos. Why do we depend on Lagos? 80% of our shipment in Nigeria comes through Lagos. And that comes down, it addresses the macroeconomic issue. Is that sustainable? Why should 80% of our shipment come through only Lagos port alone? What about Port Harcourt port? What about Warri port? What about Calabar port? And can't we have other ports? In Bayelsa, in Akwa Ibom, in Ondo? Ondo is on the seaside. Why can't we have other ports? It also addresses the issue of the economic planning in Nigeria. What does the Constitution say? It's even a legal principles of law that we should have a planned and balanced development. Is this planned and is this balanced? That 80% of our shipments should come through Lagos alone? That's one. Why should also 80% of our haulage be by road? What's wrong with the waterways? What's wrong with the barges? What's wrong with the aviation? Oh yes, aviation. We shouldn't forget aviation.
Yeah, we're doing cargo.
Yes, and critically, what is wrong with Nigerian railway? I know we mentioned here last time, and Kirian was protecting me when I mentioned that there are issues regarding Nigerian Airways that should be addressed. We should put a spotlight on it. Today, we are discussing the gridlock in Lagos dealing with haulage. A vicarious liability or responsibility lies on Nigerian Railway. How much cargo is Nigerian Railway carrying? Are there no rail lines from those ports? Apapa Port has rail lines. Port Harcourt, the old Port Harcourt port has rail lines. But there are no rail lines in Tinkan Island, in Warri Port, in Calabar Port, and these are supposedly modern ports. Even the new Port Harcourt port has no rail line. They are developing a port in Lekki today, and there's no rail line. These are structural deficiencies that should be addressed. It's poor planning, it's bad planning, it's backward. These are issues, again, that comes down to the functionality of the Nigerian Railway. How is it carrying goods from Apapa? It's supposed to be helping the evacuation. Our friends in Lagos rightly mentioned the regulatory issues and the implementation issues, dealing with road safety, dealing with the synergy between the other stakeholders. Again, nobody mentioned railway there in Lagos. Even our friend, Taiwo Salam, the PEMSEC of Lagos State, he didn't mention railway. It is this neglect of the rail infrastructure that is also compounding the problem in Lagos. If we can rouse the railway infrastructure to wake up from their coma, wake them up, they are almost dead. If we can wake them up, half of this problem will be solved. We are talking of 100 trucks, 200 trucks, 500 trucks per tank farm. That is also a structural problem. Why should 80% of our tank farms be in Lagos alone? Why can't tank farms be in other parts of Nigeria? What is wrong with having tank farms in other parts of Nigeria? In Calabar, for example, in Akwa Ibom, for example, in Delta State, in Warri, for example. Why should 80% be concentrated in Lagos alone? These are issues of bad balance planning that we should consider and continue to reflect about. There are other macroeconomic issues. I'm sure as the conversation continues, we'll address them.
Mani, thank you very much for the perspectives that you have introduced. But just to indicate that a couple of days ago, the Minister of Transportation, that's Chibuike Rotimi Amechi, was in the Lagos area. In fact, was in the Apapa area. And he did indicate that the old railway station at Apapa will be pulled down for expansion purposes, and then because the rail line is supposed to be reconstructed from Apapa, to join for the evacuation of goods from the ports, as well as, of course, for the transportation of goods to the ports. The rail lines collapsed many years ago. You can see where the tracks are, level crossings. A number of them, of course, have been seated up, and virtually the lines have disappeared. But let's return to Lagos and then deal with one micro aspect of traffic management in and around the Apapa Oshodi corridor. And my question is going to the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Salam. Dr. Salam, traffic doesn't get into a gridlock situation automatically. It's a gradual buildup. And oftentimes people are wondering how the traffic gets to build up and then the traffic authorities appear to do virtually nothing until it becomes a national catastrophe, as Mani has said here. Where is LASMA? Where is the collaboration between LASMA, for instance, and the Federal Road Safety Authority? As the traffic was building up, could they have stemmed it? And now that some remedial work is being done, clearing the obstruction, could there be a relapse?
Thank you very much. What we have done in Lagos now is a temporary solution, but there is a long-lasting solution to it. But Lagos state government cannot go into such plan without the collaboration of federal government. And that we have been able to have a stakeholders family discussion yesterday with many solutions at site now. Now, how do the traffic get to that extent? We are not the port operators. Neither are we the National Shippers Council licensing the shipping company that are bringing their traffic there. That is a special traffic. It's not a regular traffic that we are talking of. Regular traffic, there's a synergy between LASMA and Federal Road Safety Corps, and that is going on there. Now, neither are we, Lagos State Government, neither are we the DPR that is licensing all these tank farms. And the issue just remains that for you to be able to handle such thing, you need the synergy, you need the concurrence, you need the collaboration of this. If we have not been able to get the union at our side as Lagos State Government, do you think we'll have achieved what we have done? It's a special traffic, and they have destination. And okay, should we now say this traffic should not enter Lagos State? Do you know the chaos and the economic problem that the whole Nigeria will have suffered? Just as the last man has said, the issue as pertaining to railway, that one, when I came to Abuja, I told you the situation we are finding ourselves is a conspiracy model. People are conspiring. You see, they've taken Nigeria for granted. What they cannot do in their own country. How come a shipping company that is coming to Nigeria to do business, that is part of its regulation, that must have a holding bay, refuses to have a holding bay? Have you forgotten that the past government, they are the one that concessioned out the port? The port used to take care of all these things before. For us now to start going into Lily Pond, going into Fano, going into Magfo, going into Sifat, going into all these things, opening them up, pushing all this truck there at the mid hours of the day. Since Friday, we've not been sleeping, trying to make it available for people. And it involves this last man you're talking about. It involves the police. It involves FRSC. It involves other stakeholders to be able to get this thing up. You need to come and see what we are going through. With them, with dagger, with the knife, with all these and shams. They are not the people they are not the type of traffic in Lagos that we control. Now, the issue now, as we are on, is that Lagos State Government, what business have we in the tank farm? What business are we in port operation? What business are we with the shipping company? But if your neighbor if you want to eat and your neighbor is hungry, you better cook his own food with your own food. And what we have done now is His Excellency has given us a directive that we should quickly go ahead and complete Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu truck terminal. This thing Lagos State has looked at it since 2005. And the then governor of the state has done what? He has prepared this truck terminal. But these people will not go there. And where we want to say, okay, no, if you don't go there, we started arresting them, we started doing this thing. What is next thing? They say they want to go on strike. And who bears the consequences? Nigerians. So we are receiving them for a long time. The issue of railway can move container from Apapa Wharf Quay now to their own compound.
and from their own compound, that's the pedometer, they can then take them up north. The Lagos-Ibadan rail that is coming up now is also going to carry goods and passengers. So that's one of the standard gauge, 4-inch standard gauge that is coming up. They are just reawakening railway. This government has now reawakened railway. They've killed railway for a long time. It's not a matter of this discussion. So railways have been doing that. I knew when we were young, we would just stand there, the railway will be going and we'll be counting. When we count up to 50, we keep quiet as the young children. But this time around, again, the issue of Lekki, the one that Lagos State government is building, I think the last speaker should know that everything that's been put in place, including standard road, railway line, railway standard gauge, everything, so that all we're doing at Lekki Port is only operational. The administrative side of it is going to the dry port. So if you have any goods that is coming in to Lekki Port, you don't have access to Lekki Port. You go to the dry port and go and clear your goods and go out of Lagos. That's our plan for that one. So it is an opportunity here to thank all those people that has assisted us, including those the tank farms that we opened into and the bonded terminals that we opened into. That this is a national call, and we really appreciated them. The state government appreciated all they have done for the state and Nigeria in general. I also thank the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State for him to have taken the bull by the horn, and because it's an issue that if we don't do it, it will have been worse as this. The whole Lagos will have been locked, and we are even ready to go to Abuja to explain why this was done. And we thank the Vice President and the Minister of Transport too, that quickly intervened. They came around, they went around, they saw things by themselves, and they said, no, this is enough of it. So now in Lagos State, we have now all the tank farms in Lagos State now. We have suspended every activities as regards the traffic. We will now be going into them one after the other, and we are using the opportunity. We want to see their traffic impact. If you don't have a minimum of 50 loading bay as stipulated in the regulation of the DPR, please shut down your tank farm before we reach there. If not so, we'll come and shut it down for you. And we will shut it down, you will not operate until you provide that. And to the shipping company, we thank the MD of Nigerian Port Authority, Aji Adiza. She was done wonderfully well yesterday. I always criticize PMPA. But by the time we were able to have a family meeting yesterday, she has already taken some bold step that I think, God bless you. So once we are synergizing, I am telling you the long solution is at stake, and we are going for it. And it has also been extended for another 30 days. Within these 30 days, we will resolve the whole thing. We got the machine order from Mr. Excellency, Mr. Akinwumi Ambode, and we're using the opportunity to let the negotiators know that their pain is our pain, and His Excellency is totally behind them, and we will resolve this issue now. It wasn't Lagos State issue, but again, as I've said, if your neighbor is hungry, you better cook his own food with yours. If not so, you two, both of you will end up not feeding well. So thank you very much.
That's a very interesting one. You have opened up many perspectives to this conversation, and that gives us an impression, Kingsley, that it's a more complex issue. The shipping companies are involved. The transportation associations are involved. The issue of indiscipline is also involved. And that's why I want to put a question now to Ignatius Obogo. This issue of having multiple transport-related associations that do not speak with one voice, how does this compound the menace of a traffic gridlock in the environment in question?
Thanks, Kiro. You see, the issue of multiple transport unions and associations is it's on its own a problem. You see, in Nigeria, there is freedom of association. But again, like I keep saying, transportation does not start and ends in Apapa Port. Transportation has a national outlook we're a situation where you have an association that hardly can you trace its office. Who are its members? What are its national spread? I think what the regulatory agencies need to start doing is to begin to regulate the transport unions and associations first. If you say you're a transport union and association, you're a leader, who are your followers? What is your national outspread? What are your members? Do you have an office in Kano? If your member is in Kano and he runs into a problem in Kano, will you be able to say, go to so-so-so office in Kano and you get respite? Again, it may interest you to know that the meeting with the SGF after the Otodola tank explosion, I'm happy the PAMSEC was in that meeting. The issue came up, and there was a marching order. It's part of the resolution reads that all single truck owners should go and register with NATO. NATO, Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, is the umbrella organization of all commercial vehicle owners. We have branches in 36 states in the Federation, and we have presence in the 6 geopolitical zones. And NATO has a high level of recognition from the government. That is why NATO represents the interests of transporters at Petroleum Product Price Regulatory Agency, the agency charged with the responsibility of regulating freight rate. NATO is also representing the interests of transporters at Federal Road Maintenance Agency. NATO is also representing the interest. NATO did represent the interests of transporters when Shopee was on course. NATO represents the interests of transporters at NASIMA. NATO represents the interests of transporters at NECA in our capacity as employers of labor. And as I speak to you here, I'm also the interim president of West African Road Transport Union. The national president of NATO is the president of African Roads and Logistics Union. So this is what it takes to have an association. And again, all the tankers, most of the tankers you see carrying petroleum products in this country belong to NATO members. 70% of the trucks also belong to NATO. And that is why we have a condition of service with Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union of Nigeria. I think what the corporate affairs needs to start doing is to begin not just to register people. You come, you say you want to register, you register. There's need for the regulatory agencies, NTA, Shippers Council, to begin to regulate these transport unions and associations. First and foremost, it is important. You cannot allow a body that is amorphous, that has no office, no structure. One man, you say you are the chairman, you pilot, you are the treasurer. It is not about what you are, but it's not about it's what you do. So I tend to agree with you that this issue has to be regulated. It has to be looked into. The idea of people coming to just sit down and call themselves transport union and association does not hold weight, and it's not proper. So I think there's need for regulation. And secondly, for us to be able to address the issue of traffic in Apapa, we must think of decentralizing loading. There has to be decentralization. Let's decentralize. 80% of the petroleum product loaded in this country is loaded from Apapa. And 80% of the cargo coming into this country is also generated from Apapa. The cargo throughput is increasing, and the infrastructures are also expanding to accommodate the increase in cargo throughput. If the dredging in Niger, you could have taken some tank farms here, Calabar, Port Harcourt, on there. These are all things you can put in place to reduce the pressure on loadings in Lagos. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ogbogo, thank you very much. And gentlemen, thanks a lot. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we shall read out the tweets that have come in from some of our contributors and then return to our guests to continue aspects of the conversation.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Oh boy, climb this thing now. No be only to connect lights.
Come you and yourself now.
Now wow. Oh boy, come down now. Oga Kasali electrician who will look for with this.
Oh.
Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry. I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer because change begins with me.
Oh boy, letting him talk makes sense. Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from over.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. And I say good morning, Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's quickly go through some of the tweets that we have and then return to our guest. Festus Akimboyewa. The gridlock in Apapa has been choking Nigeria's trade and disrupting free flow of people and goods for many years. But if government stops the trucks, they also stop the economy. Government should invest in infrastructure, in rails, and then space for the trucks. Government must also protect our pipelines.
Now, Nneka Chibundu Oga says there are about 4 or more petroleum depots in the country that should be fixed up for petroleum products to be distributed, and those trucks can get the products from them.
Mike Anyakwa tweets, now the traffic gridlock in Apapa is a typical case of the absence of planning in our superstructure. We should have envisaged increase in population and vehicles over time and factor them into our budgets for massive road construction, new bridges and flyovers. And the way forward now is more road and rail.
Now, Dele Jackson Solomon, while our neighboring ports are booming, our ports have been deserted because of the field access routes to the ports, the gateway to the nation's economy. To decongest the routes, the railway should be developed, while pipeline distribution of petroleum products should be considered. Just as you were saying, that many are preferring to bring in their goods through neighboring countries' ports as against ours.
Our ports, that's right. Dele Jackson Solomon again has another tweet, Kirian. It says, fixing Apapa port arterials would not only reduce the knock-on effect on business and spiraling costs of operations and demurrage. Now, it will help check the activities of criminals who use every opportunity to attack, assault, and rob innocent Nigerians.
All right, now, Sani Michael Mokaji, the traffic gridlock in Apapa is man-made, not a natural disaster. Why did we allow it to happen? Where is road safety and her sister paramilitary agencies? Why do we always wait for the avoidable to happen before we think of prevention? It's so sad we do things this way.
Victor Ohio Swama tweets, now the problem of traffic gridlock in Apapa seems insurmountable. It's been there for years. Now, all previous solutions adopted failed. The solution is to decongest the activities in the port and make other ports, such as Warri, Calabar, functional, and also use rail instead of the trunk roads for goods.
All right, now, Cecilia Okoroma, does it mean if a bigger authority does not give smaller authority orders, things will not work? The gridlock in Apapa is scandalous.
This is from Daniel Abiodun. Until the trains are back and other ancillary infrastructure needed for the smooth running of a modern seaport put in place, the gridlock cannot be completely erased or eradicated. The transportation infrastructure around the ports is poor.
Yeah, Kingsley, we omitted Ibrahim Tudu. He says that there should be permanent task force on Apapa routes if no serious measures are taken. We are close to irredeemable tragedy with this Apapa gridlock.
Now, Vivian tweets, Vivian tweets, to help the residents of Apapa and Lagos as well, the Nigerian police and various task forces should do their job and stop the bribery as alleged, and I think that this will help.
Cecilia Okoroma, this is an era of technology whereby trucks can be parked somewhere outside Apapa and moved at the nick of time of loading.
All right, Kirian, let's quickly return to our guests before we get pressed for time. Back again to Lagos before we bring in Manny here with us in the Abuja studios. And my question is going to Tony Uwabunike, who is president of the Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents. One of the points that Manny raised has to do with the fact that the country does not appear to be taking advantage of other ports in the country. What has been the experience of your members? Are your members only in Lagos? Do they have businesses elsewhere in the country? Say in Port Harcourt, in Warri, Calabar. I know that the governor of Edo State is playing a solo game now, virtually, trying to build a new port at Gelegele. That is in Edo State, which was where the Portuguese used when they arrived in the 15th century. So where are your members, why are your members not found mostly elsewhere in the country as part of the means of decongesting the Apapa and Tinkan ports?
Thank you very much. Let me say by telling you that our members are all over the country. As I'm talking with you now, I have as a chairman from Calabar, One Seaport, Area 1, Port Harcourt, Airport Seaport. In fact, as a matter of fact, I'm a director of Kaduna Dry Port. I'm a director of Kanu Inland Container Terminal, and recently the Anambra State Governor is building a very massive inland container terminal. That is Port Bonded Terminal, Free Station. And I'm telling you, as I'm sitting down here today, every one of these areas are actually listening to us. The problem of port is that federal government must decentralize Lagos. Onitsha Seaport needs dredging. Then all the inland container terminal depots should be encouraged. Aba has a depot that is supposed to be encouraged. Up to now, nothing has happened there. Then only Anambra State Governor is very magnanimous of building a bonded terminal for the very first time in the whole Southeast, in the whole Anambra, in Owerri and Enugu. Then if you talk about the whole Southeast, there's no bonded terminal in the whole Southeast except the one the governor is building. So we need to decentralize these Lagos. I'm sympathizing with the Lagos State government because I know that they have been working very hard when it comes to traffic situations in the Lagos State. But this Apapa has been very, very difficult to discuss with. Like I told you before, we must look into it properly. Government must put the roads very well. The federal government must sanitize the place by giving instructions and mandates to shipping companies and terminals that are taking laws into their hands. And I tell you, most influential Nigerians are their directors and the managing directors and their chairmen of these companies I'm talking about. The concessionaires, equally, we must look into it. Who has been concessionized our ports? How old is the concession? Has it lasted? Has it been renewed? Federal government must to look into these things. And again, we are talking about transport owners. The transporters are not in line with what we're saying because their drivers are not trained. Most of their drivers are not taking laws. They are taking laws into their hands. They are not taking instruction from their bosses, and it has been a big problem. Another issue is that forming a task force, yes, is good. But the moment the task force comes into port, they begin to think about how to make the money and go home with it. The whole area needs to be reorganized and re-engineered. Then coming to talk about the railway station. Like I told you, I'm a director of Inland Container Terminal and the Kaduna Seaport, Dry Port. And I'm saying that it is very important that the rail stations must be put to order. Today, we are not having any TUs from the rail because of the problems of railway. The Minister of Transportation has been working very hard to see that railways are working. I really don't know what exactly is the problem. We need to look into it critically. And I'm telling you, as I'm talking to you, it's not easy to transport all the TEUs from Lagos to Kano and Kaduna, it has been a big problem. Going to Onitsha, the roads are bad. You can't even take the consignments to that place. So you need to encourage bonded terminals and freight stations. Then coming to seaports, I'll tell you that even Calabar Seaport is underutilized. Lagos, Port Harcourt area, one seaport, is very deep, yet is very underutilized. Even the airport at Port Harcourt is not even functioning to full capacity. And I really do not know why this is happening. Maybe probably we need to look at the freight. The freight is another point we should look into. And federal governments must interact with us, those who are the critical stakeholders. They don't have to put laws into they put laws into us. They need to sit down with most stakeholders to begin to talk about laws and before it comes to become implemented. Because every law they bring out so muchly negates to the principles of what is on ground. Another problem we are having is for us too, who are not actually working and believing that this government will succeed. It must be a collective effort for all of us to make this thing work. So the situation on ground is that the implementation, enforcement, and the total reorganization of maritime sector is very important.
Thank you indeed, Nwabunike. You mentioned earlier that this is a perennial problem that requires a solution that can be sustainable for a long time. You also told us now that your men are in places you mentioned, even some of where you are director and what have you. But why has it been that 80% of your activities is in Lagos? With all those branches or headquarters that you have elsewhere, why have you concentrated in Lagos?
It's all about supply and demand issue. And I say this because I know what it takes to the freight coming to Lagos is a little bit cheaper for the importers. Coming to Port Harcourt, I want even the shipping liners to begin to put the freight station, the freight according to, let them encourage the Easterners. Let them encourage the Easterners by reducing their freight. The freight is higher. When you look at the freight an Easterner is paying and the Western ports are paying, you will now begin to understand what I'm saying. Another thing is very clear. The supply and demand, Lagos is a very high level of a commercialized area. And people are actually believing that the 60% of their products should be sold in Lagos. But I actually believe that when you make Onitsha, Aba, and other areas in the southeast to become very functional, even by giving them bonded terminals, these areas will be reopened. Even trying to make sure that an Onitsha seaport has been totally dredged, they will now be encouraged. They don't have any way to get their consignments to that place. The roads are not good. So the concentration is in Lagos. And Lagos is actually suffering it because I know the capacity and the number of containers that are coming into these ports, those ports. And it's important we begin to do this as I said.
All right, Mr. Nwabunike, thank you very much. The nightmare that we are facing now is similar to what happened in the mid-70s during the administration of General Yakubu Gowon when he had a cement armada. Cement imports, clogged cement and flour, clogged the Apapa ports, and ultimately that became one of the incentives for the construction of Tin Camp. My question is going to Mani here with us in the Abuja studios. Listening to the guests from Lagos, in particular the last guest who just spoke, that's Mr. Tony Nwabunike, we're hearing this to say, all right, it's cheaper for you to use the Lagos ports, but when you look at the long run, the knock-on effect of the cost, demurrage and delays and so on and so forth, are you ultimately a loser? And therefore, what should be the proper economic consideration by, say, the Nigerian Ports Authority, the Shippers Council, and others to encourage the use of other ports, say, on the eastern flank of the country?
Kingsley, that is a very, very good question. The issue which Tony addressed, saying that the use of Lagos is determined by demand and supply, goes to part of the poverty of planning and implementation in Nigeria. We have allowed this invisible force of supply and demand and the market fundamentalism since the days of Babangida's government, when we went into structural adjustment to control and determine our economic fortunes and the well-being of our country. We threw away the issue of planning. I mentioned planning earlier. In fact, it's a constitutional requirement. I think section 16, subsection 2A or so, requires us to direct the policies of our country to ensure planned economy, planned and balanced economy. It's a constitutional requirement. The moment we threw that overboard from the days of Babangida, the economy, as you can see, have gone adrift. It's become rudderless. And we allow forces of demand and supply. Forces of demand and supply, what we see in Lagos today goes to dramatize the issue of market failure when you allow forces of demand and supply to determine your logic of state policy. Why can't we truly, as you asked, use Calabar Port? Why can't we use Akwa Ibom Port? Why can't we develop other ports like it's been done in Edo? And why can't we develop the inland ports, like he said, Aba, Onitsha, and even all the way up to Lokoja and to Benue, by the way? Why not? Those issues of planning have been neglected, and this is the consequences that we are seeing today. And in the long run, it doesn't make economic logic. You are transporting goods to Kano, to Borno, to Makurdi, to Enugu, and you are depositing them in Lagos. It doesn't make sense. You spend 4, 5, 6, 7 days on the road. Even those who live in Lagos, they spend 7 hours going to work, to and fro, on a daily basis. There is a huge economic loss in time, even the stress on their body and the health, the wear and tear on their vehicle, and the environment. None of that make economic logic. That is even at the individual level. Let's talk of on the corporate level. On the corporate level, if you are taking goods to Nasarawa, you're taking goods to Taraba State, why do you use Lagos Port? Why can't you use Calabar Port? Calabar is on the southeast. It makes sense if you're going to the Middle Belt Zone, or you're going to the northeast section of Nigeria, or up the way to Maiduguri. You don't need to use the Lagos Port. And 80% of all what is used in all those parts of Nigeria use Lagos, which is utterly economic illogicality.
Kieran, I'm just wondering, just to the point. I mean, if you look at the development of the rail system under the colonial administration, you had the eastern flank, and then you had the western flank. Western flank, of course, from Lagos straight up to Kano, and eastern flank from Port Harcourt through the various ports, and then straight up to Maiduguri for evacuation of agricultural produce and so on and so forth.
You don't blame my brother there in Lagos, because the forces of demand and supply to them is a business strategy, and like he said, that importers want 80% of their products sold in Lagos because of the economic viability of Lagos. That's understandable on the micro level, but when it comes to macro level, then what money is saying becomes very, very relevant. All right, now let's talk to the permanent secretary there in Lagos. Now, are you thinking of any technological approach to this? Of course, if not for Lagos State to do that, maybe as a suggestion, because technology has taken over the world. The automation of Apapa area, the automation of the business, is it necessary? Can it work? Can it help to bring about a decongestion of the area if the practice there is automated?
Yes, for the practice to be automated, you must have a holding bay where you will put all these trucks. So it is from there now you can now have a call-up system where you can now be calling them to the port. And that's what the Lagos State and the FBA, we are now synergizing together to get the terminal trucks and other area to be able to get this enjoyed. Yes, it can be possible. But for the last speaker, it's a triangular commercial issue. They go to Abuja to go and strike the contract. They come to Port Harcourt to come and leave the oil, and they come to Lagos. to come and dispose and sell them off. It's a triangular angle. So for you to plan, you must also look at the commercial angle of it.
I want to ask him.
All right.
I already have
All
it.
right. All right. He has concluded. Go ahead.
Hello, Dr. Salam. If you can hear me, my question is still to you in our Lagos Network studios. Earlier, when you were speaking, you did say that what has been done now in terms of the clearance of the obstruction by the tankers and other articulated trucks is a temporary measure. We understand that some of these articulated trucks and even tankers have relocated to Okota and Ajegunle. And these are residential locations. I mean, considering what the hazards could be, how sustainable is this, whether in the short term or in the medium term?
Thank you very much. The Lagos State government have reached out with the union yesterday after our family meeting. We are going to smoke all of them out there. We will smoke them out. We will take them out of Lagos. And anyone that we arrested will just prosecute that one straight off. We have told all the tanker owners and the truck owners to come and take their truck out of Lagos. If they don't have TDO, they should go out of Lagos. If they have the TDOs, they should go into the holding bay where they will now be called. Because as we are now moving, what we realized was that when we are taking the container away from them and asking them to get out of Lagos, that's when they are now going to the nooks and crannies of Ajegunle, Kirikiri, and another area. So again, we are trying to resolve a problem somewhere. They are trying to create it in another place. So we all resolve with the NTA, with the union now. For the extension of 30 days, we'll start picking them up. We'll smoke all of them out of Lagos.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, let's take
all right, we have some tweets here now, yes. But I'd wanted Ignatius Obogo to actually do what will likely be his final thoughts on this conversation. Aloga Ignatius Obodo, please come in here and try to address some of the issues raised by Salam.
Responsible association, we have told our members that if you don't have business to be in Lagos, don't come to Lagos. And if you come to Lagos, you are on your own. You see, there are exceptions, and you have people who want to do things that are not in line with the major objectives of the association. We have told them we must be part of this solving the problems in Lagos, and that is why the PS himself can attest to the fact that we gave them the maximum cooperation, and we are all involved in this task force something, and we are educating our members, and we are prepared to support Lagos State government in bringing sanity. But going beyond that, he has also said that a truck that has a TDO should be able to access the port. And a truck that is going to carry petroleum products should be able to have a call-up later. If you have a TDO, logically, should you be on queue? That's where the problem is. If you have a TDO, you should access the port. But you will discover that 70% of the trucks on queue have TDOs, and yet they are not being able to access the port. One critical issue was raised in the course of our deliberation. NPA has about 4 gates. We discovered that only 1 or 2 of the gates is functional. That, again, is a problem on its own. So some of these operational hitches should be, tackled, and no matter how long you keep a queue, how long you ask this truck to be on one lane, if at the point of entry, that is at NPA gate, if there is no sanity, it disturbs the rate at which truck can access the port. So there are some of these operational problems that has to be looked into. But basically, the bottom line of the whole thing is that decentralizing Lagos, making the pipeline functional, making the ports, other ports in this country functional. And that's the only way you can reduce the pressure and introducing intermodal system of transportation.
All right, Wogo, thank you very much. We just want to quickly run through the next set of tweets that we have, and then we'll call it a day on the conversation segment. Cecilia Okoroma has this tweet. The gridlock requires the Chinese to come and show us the wonders of technology. How limited space can pack thousands of vehicles.
I believe what she just said. The Victor Onomo, let's get our refineries back on track, build more refineries, develop or build more seaports and dry ports, and get the railways working while working to improve on other haulage facilities.
Sani Makalo Makoji. Now, we boast and brag that Lagos is not just a city, but a mega city in Africa. But is the gridlock, such as the one we are having in Apapa, also a feature of a mega city?
Now, Cecilia Okoroma, once again, the gridlock in Apapa clearly shows lawlessness, painlessness, or planlessness, backwardness, insensitivity, and lack of creativity.
And this one is from Godwin Johnson. The decentralization of Lagos ports by opening other ports in the country that will be the only way to reduce traffic in Lagos. Railways will compound the issue more because it is not the foundational problem. Decentralize the ports, period.
Now, Success Umo, Warri, Port Harcourt and Calabar ports are lying low with little or no activities. Federal government Ministry of Transport should do something urgent about it.
And this is from Emmanuel Abulime. Please tell them that Gele Seaport in Edo State is waiting to be tapped. All right, so those are the tweets that we can take. We'd like to appreciate your contributions, and then indeed our 4 guests, 3 of them joining us from our Lagos Network studios. First, from Lagos, we'd like to appreciate the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Transportation in Lagos. That's Dr. Taiwo Olufemi Salam. Doctor, you see him there in a dark suit and a red tie. And then, of course, in the middle is Mr. Tony Iju Nwabonike, National President Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Clearing Agents. And then last but not the least is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, Aloga Ignatius Ogbogo. Gentlemen from Lagos, we appreciate your contributions to our discussion this morning. And then right here with us in the Abuja studios, our appreciation also to Mane Ochuboju, legal practitioner and transport consultant. Always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that does it now for our discussion. Let's go very quickly to our complementary segments. And here is sports.